Hey, how you doing? Debateocity here. So today's question up for debate. Are we humans really that advanced? Think about it. In terms of modern medicine, we've made more major breakthroughs in the past century than thousands of years before that. Yet despite all these breakthroughs, we're still getting sick, in addition to being so much more susceptible to viruses and diseases than other animals are. In terms of manned spaceflight, a few short trips to the moon, and now we've spent the past few decades pondering in Earth's orbit. In terms of world energy, despite the increasing popularity of renewable energy, the industrial world is still relying heavily on the burning of fossil fuels to sustain the increasing demand for energy as population growth continues. In social and moral terms, there's still racism and discrimination, there's still prejudice, there's still massive inequalities such as gender and wealth inequalities, and the list goes on. So can we really classify ourselves as an advanced species despite all these holdbacks? Well, in a natural environment we were very advanced. Our critical thinking skills allowed us to break the pattern of predictable behaviour other animals have, and this gave us a massive advantage over them. But when we started to gather in numbers during the agricultural revolution 12,000 years ago, we no longer needed that advantage, and hence we went back to learning through imitation, as animals do. Of course, a few learned how to turn their critical thinking skills into invention, but this was far from all of humanity, and religion was largely responsible for squashing the reuse of our former advantage. In other words, critical thinking would have led to questioning, which in turn would have led to disagreements. Yet today, after a 2,000-year break, we're finally beginning to free ourselves and our minds from those shackles, and the result is, well, pretty much everything you see around you today. And if we've come this far, with the limited amount of freedom that we've been given in the span of just 2,000 years, imagine where we'll be when all minds are free. Looking into more detail, we are advanced in some definitions. We're better tool users than we used to be, which for me is advancement in comparison to our history. I believe it's irrefutable to say that modern medicine certainly does have a lot more room for improvement. But despite this, we biologically are more advanced in terms of health and well-being when compared to a lot of our ancestors who would have died at very young ages of diseases that today are perfectly curable or preventable. I'm sure that many of you watching this now have probably outlived your grandparents' ages at the time of their deaths, so thumbs up for medicine. Now, as is fairly obvious, large numbers of us are in an enraged love affair with technology. But how many of us could survive out in the forest with no clothing, no tools, no technology, and only what was available to us? If we were put in this type of survival of the fittest situation, we'd pretty much be dead meat. Literally. People always argue that we're a naturally omnivorous species due to the fact that we've evolved canines. But if you look in greater depth, you'll realise that this is far from the truth. Our mouths are so small and our canines so meagre that if they were ever used for hunting, they'd be absolutely useless. Human legs are very weak in comparison to other animals. So weak to the point where, in a natural hunting situation, we'd have absolutely no hope of outrunning any potential prey. Hence, we would be forced to live off the plants, just like herbivores. Our guts are poorly adapted to handling a meat-filled diet, hence the need to cook meat products before consumption. In other words, we'd pretty much become a very subservient herbivorous species, and when predators learned our new place on the food chain, they'd finally be able to give us a first-hand experience of the hunter being hunted. We're not that advanced when compared to other animals who are perfectly capable, without human intervention, of surviving to an old age without medical care or the internet. We're also not that advanced in the sense that we made a mess of our planet in the early centuries by using our growing mobility to move other species from their natural habitats to where we wanted them. This created invasions and incursions that even today are still taking a toll. If we were really advanced, we would have seen the folly in what we were doing. We didn't. Now, as I mentioned earlier, social issues such as racism, prejudice, and inequalities are still rampant in this world, despite the dozens of campaigns that have tried to put an end to it. Now, in my personal opinion, these sorts of campaigns are far-fetched. Why? Let me explain. When we humans were still hunters and gatherers, We were almost definitely part of some sort of tribe. From the point of view of the tribespeople, any foreign tribes were a threat to their survival. Hence they would have avoided any other groups at all costs. This behaviour is called tribalism, and it's something that we've carried with us all the way up to the present day. Although it would have been very helpful back then, today it's a big factor in all the social issues that plague our society. So how does this make anti-racism campaigns far-fetched? Well, tribalism is an instinct. Instincts aren't easily overcome, if possible at all. No matter how much we improve, or try to improve socially as a species, no matter how connected we feel towards others, tribalism will always be our downfall. Nowadays, we may not be living in caves, but then caves don't burn down. They don't get tossed around by tornadoes. So are we as advanced as we think we are? Well, as I said, it depends on which way you look at it. Are we advanced in social and moral terms? No. We've still got a long way to go before we can classify ourselves as a socially advanced species. Are we advanced in terms of surviving in a natural environment? We were tens of thousands of years ago, but not anymore. Nowadays we're basically clueless infants when it comes to that aspect. But are we advanced in terms of what we've achieved as a species? Yes, we definitely are. Until the next time, goodbye.